If you're struggling with ME/CFS or something similar, you know this story all too well. There are countless doctors, endless appointments, and still no answers. It's like being passed around like a hot potato. My guest today saw 33 different doctors and spent over a decade on this medical merry-go-round until she finally took matters into her own hands and recovered using a science-based approach. And with a PhD in human biology, she really knows her stuff. Hi, everyone. I'm Raelan. If you're new here, welcome. Here, I share tons of stories from people all over the world who've overcome conditions like ME/CFS and long COVID. It's my absolute passion and honor to share these stories so we can all learn from each other and discover what has worked for the many who have recovered. Today, I'm so excited to introduce you to Martina over in Munich, Germany. Martina's battle with ME/CFS began over 15 years ago. Like so many, she spent a long time severely ill following the usual medical path, but everything changed when she stumbled across one of my videos and found my channel, which is just so heartwarming. And one specifically that stuck out to her was when I said, don't Google CFS. You have to Google CFS recovery because that dramatically changes the information that's going to come up for you. So that was a turning point in Martina's journey. And today she's here to share the three biggest things that helped her to reclaim her life. So let's dive in. Martina, amazing to have you join today. Thanks for being here.
Thank you very much for having me.
So I am going to ask you an impossible question, which is to try and sum up the many years and many struggles you've had with this chronic health illness of yours in kind of a short amount of time. I know it's been a lot, but can you give us a sense of what this journey has been like for you? How did this all start?
Yeah, I tried to keep it short. It all started in 2009. There I had glandular fever. And I had this for a few weeks, and I had the typical symptoms. And after that, I tried to live a normal life again. So I went back to work full time, and I exercised again, and I really tried to live a normal life. But looking back, I can say I simply never fully recovered from that initial infection. So I had many symptoms. The main symptoms at the beginning were fatigue, extreme fatigue, and an extreme muscle weakness and pain, and this feeling of heaviness. And I had constant flu-like symptoms. I also had many infections. So usually during fall and spring, I felt like getting an infection, or I got an infection. That was crazy. And over the years, my condition became worse and worse, and I got more symptoms and more symptoms. But despite all that symptoms, I was able to work, and I really don't know how this was possible. I think I was totally on autopilot. I was here in my head, and what was going down here, I didn't want to feel it. It just, my body had to work and to function, and if it didn't, then I was in a fight with my body. I think many people can relate to that. Maybe you too from your past. But of course, this wasn't a helpful approach, but that was the way I was. And after several years with more and more symptoms and declining health, I started this odyssey with doctors, as so many of us experience. So over the years, I went to over 30 doctors, and but usually they didn't find anything, or you find something, but it couldn't explain my symptoms. And usually they said, oh, it's all in your head, it's your psyche. And because I was also an introverted person, I'm still introverted, a bit shy. And that was, there's a woman, introverted, many different symptoms, medically unexplained symptoms. That's one of the psychosomatic, yeah, I think many of us experienced that too. So yeah, but yeah, it took me 11 years to get the right diagnosis. That was ME/CFS. And I also, a few weeks later, I also got the diagnosis POTS. I also got the diagnosis IBS, irritable bowel syndrome. So yeah, that was a good explanation for all the symptoms I had, because as I told you, I got more and more symptoms over the years. And I also had the fibromyalgia-like pain, but I didn't get the diagnosis fibromyalgia because, yeah, I didn't want to go to doctors anymore. I was fed up with them. Yeah. So that was the beginning of the journey.
When you got the ME/CFS diagnosis, had you heard of this condition before?
Yes, I had actually several years before. So because I worked as a journalist, and a colleague of mine had written an article about chronic fatigue syndrome, and I read that article, and I thought, well, that's me. That's absolutely me, with all the symptoms and all the things that were happening. And so when I went to doctors, I usually asked them about CFS, and I got crazy answers from only people with cancer get it, to this is a kind of fashion diagnosis, or it doesn't exist, or no, you have a depression. So many doctors told me I would have a depression, a somatic expression, which you more feel in the body and not so psychologically. But yeah.
It only happens to people with cancer. That's a new one.
I haven't heard of it.
I used to think I've kind of heard it all, but I no longer am that naive, because every person, every interview I do, they say something. I'm like, what? Like, how? So how did you feel when you finally got that diagnosis?
Yeah, to be honest, for me, it was very freeing. It was because after so many years with these symptoms and no explanation, and going to so many doctors, I had the diagnosis, which I found was so obvious. And yeah, of course, it was, oh my God, it's ME/CFS. And, you know, when you read about it, depending on where you read about it, it can, yeah, it's also, yeah, can be very triggering. But for me, at the first, the first thing was really, I have a diagnosis and I believe this diagnosis and this explains everything I have. And yeah, so for me, actually, it was not too bad.
Yeah, a lot of people I talk to say something like there's this short-lived honeymoon period when they get the diagnosis of a relief, but then they start Googling and it can be crushing, the information that's out there. So it's like, goes from like, yay, I know what I have, to, oh crap, this is what I have.
Yeah, exactly.
There's no hope.
Yeah.
Fortunately, that's shifting. You know, we go back even not too long ago, virtually all the information online was telling you that you would never get better. And now we have tons and tons, you know, telling you that you can. But a lot out there that is not so hopeful.
Yeah.
So how did getting these diagnoses shape things for you from there? Did doctors have suggestions for recovery, or did you start trying to find your own things to do?
Yeah, so the physician who gave me the diagnosis was a specialist for ME/CFS. That was also very important to me, to have a person who really understands this illness from the conventional medical viewpoint, of course. But that was, so I live here in Germany, but I traveled to Austria, to Vienna, to see this specialist, and he was really a great person. And after 5 minutes, he told me, it is so obvious that you have this illness, and I can understand all your symptoms and what you were going through. I was sitting there and thought, huh, what? Oh my gosh, that's unbelievable. Doctor who understands me. He told me the typical conventional medical view. So there is no cure, you can nothing do about it. The only thing you can do is pacing, and then you can try some medication, which are not. I mean, they are not really test. They were not really tested in clinical trials, but you can try them, and that's the only options you have. And then he told me, yeah, some people try dietary changes or supplements, and but that's all you can do about it.
I hear this from a lot of people who go to see ME/CFS specialists, and I find I have a sort of short-lived honeymoon period when I hear about these specialists because I think how incredible that we have these people around the world. And some are amazing, and I've interviewed some on the channel that are have a lot to offer, but many sound like what you're telling me. I almost think, what is the point of having an ME/CFS specialist if they're really going to tell you that there's nothing you can do? I just, how did you feel? You had this doctor who finally believed you, but it sounds like you were still left with nothing.
Yeah. So my honeymoon phase with the CFS was over.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, I started really with a conventional medical approach and the information we had here in Germany at that time. So I saw these self-help groups or these patient organizations, and I looked at all the information they had. And the first thing I started with was pacing. It was helpful, but it took me over a year to really learn how to pace and to stabilize my condition. But that was really the first new thing, because before that, all the years my health was declining. And through pacing, I was really able to stabilize the condition. But I can tell you, and I know that from some interview you did with, I don't know with whom, but I hated pacing. It was so difficult because I was that overactive person, overachiever, never resting, and always go, go, go. And then I had to, hold myself back all the time. I had to check my energy and find which costed too much energy, and I had to rest. And it was a terrible time. It was really, I was in a fight against myself. I
Yeah.
think you can relate to that.
There's an interview. I'll link it above. It is one of my early ones. It's probably a bit cringe worthy to watch, seeing me and anyways, but yeah, I can't remember her name, but I'll find it. And she was just the most honest about it. She's like, I hate pacing. I don't ever want to pace. Why would I want to pace? It's very validating. It's so true, because most of us are go, 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 and pacing just feels like the biggest impossible ask to put these limits on yourself all the time. That being said, it does have some value if you do it in a good way. And because, getting caught in that push crash cycle is so hard also. But I don't think any of us like pacing. And pacing never stops. I still have to do pacing to this day, and I still don't like it. It's just part of life.
But I think it's a new way of living, and it's not that strict. I can be active for 30 minutes and then I have to lie down on the couch for 2 hours, because that makes you crazy and it keeps you stuck. So looking back, I know that. But I think we all have to look at our daily energy levels, and that makes sense to pace somehow, but in a healthy style, in a healthy way.
Yeah. I think it's more of a mindset, and I think we're evolving with pacing as we go, like with everything. You go back even 5 years ago and we knew barely nothing. And what many of us, well-intentioned, I might have even have said this in some videos, but it was like having a schedule to follow, and it's just stressful. I think it's more about just thinking like, okay, I have a high activity thing happening this afternoon. Like just generally before and after it, let me try and do something restful for a bit. Just having that sense of balancing things out a bit, as opposed to like, oh no, I was only supposed to sit for 6 minutes and I sat for 7 minutes. I'm so sick now.
Exactly. I will get post-exertional malaise. Okay, now I can laugh about it in YouTube, but when you're really so ill, then you're so full of anxiety and of fear. It's horrible. So but it really was peaceful, because helpful. Helpful is the right word. Because when I look now on Instagram or so, many people say, forget pacing. And when they talk about the baseline, and other people don't know what is the baseline, so there's a lot of stress and misinformation. And I don't know. Yeah. So I can tell that for me, pacing was helpful at that time. But later on, of course, it was not helpful anymore in this strict form. Yeah. Another helpful thing at the beginning was dietary changes. So because of my severe gut issues, I tried almost every diet under the sun. And it was also, like you say in the US, a rabbit hole. Another rabbit hole was supplements, because I tried so many different diets. And some things were really helpful, though the most helpful thing was avoiding dairy, and I still do that. It helped to improve my gut and especially also my severe stomach pain. But other diets weren't helpful. Some diets, I think, were even more harmful because some of these diets are so restrictive and you have to avoid so many foods and you eat to less calories. Also, all these paleo things weren't helpful for me because I had to accept that my body simply doesn't thrive on fat, but on carbs. So I couldn't avoid carbs at all. And and then I went into this functional medicine stuff, and I thought that would be the solution for everything, but it wasn't. And also these supplements, like so many people, I spent too much money on supplements. And I think there was not really a big difference.
Yeah, I think MECFS and probably now long COVID are keeping the supplement industry alive. Like the amount of money we pump into them, it is amazing. They should be sponsoring us somehow. I don't know. There should be some sort of thank you coming our way for the crazy amounts of money. So many of us have a supplement graveyard.
Yeah, well, for some people, supplements are helpful.
Yeah.
So it's okay. And I mean, if you go to a doctor and he makes a blood test and he says you have too less iron or deficiency in whatever, then it makes sense to supplement that for a while. But if you don't have these issues and you take those supplements, I'm a pharmacist, and I want to say supplements can also be harmful because it's a single substance in a very high dose, and it can interact with your gut, with other medication, and so it makes sense to be somewhat careful with supplements.
Yeah, and because they're available over the counter, most of us think, oh, well, they can't really, it's just vitamins, you hear someone mention one here, mention one there, and before you know it, you're taking 20 different things a day or more, but really have no idea how they interact. So yeah, just a lot to be cautious about with supplements. And just generally speaking, I haven't spoken to anyone who has said supplements are what cured my MECFS. Like that was the answer I was looking for. Maybe it helped with specific deficiencies or things in their body or help them with sleep or so I shouldn't bash so hard on the supplement industry. I know a lot of us have spent a lot of money and not seen tons of results.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, another helpful thing at the beginning, and that was really also a mindset change, that was you, Raelan, you and your channel. When I found you, your channel was really a small channel with the very first videos, I think. I remember videos where you explained how to make kimchi and even how to peel garlic. I don't know if you remember those videos, but of course, I made everything, did everything you did. So, and I also read your book, and it was very, very inspirational. It was really great. So actually, you were the person who opened up the word to recovery of me. And I now get goosebumps when I say that, but I'm really so grateful that you are here. Yeah.
Well, thank you for saying that. And I'm grateful that you endured those early videos. It really must have just been horrible. Had no idea what I was doing. Still have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm glad
No,
it was
it was
helpful for you.
great, but you also showed physical exercises, and but it was not possible for me because I was too weak for them. But yeah, you were really an inspiration, and you still are for so many people. So that were the first things, and then I also found Dan Neufer. You know him very well,
Mhm.
and I did his program ANS Rewire, and I really liked that program because. He had a scientific approach, and he had an explanation for all of my symptoms and what was really going on in my body. And that was a relief for me. And that so your channel and dance program really made a shift in my mindset, and that recovery is really possible, and that I'm not broken, and there's nothing broken in my body, but that it is only, in quote, dysfunctions, and that it's a thing of the nervous system and the brain. And so I did his program, but I must say that his brain retraining exercises weren't helpful for me, unfortunately. And I tried other techniques as well, but brain retraining wasn't, yeah, really helpful for me. And looking back, I think it was because there was too much bound in the system, like I call it. Yeah, so brain retraining simply wasn't enough. Yeah, but this nevertheless, I improved.
So, what would you say were the biggest things that have helped you with your health along the way and got you to where you are now?
Yeah, so it was a very long journey, and it's still a journey, and yeah, so I improved after doing these first things, but then unfortunately a traumatic event happened, and that was that the loved one died suddenly in a horrible accident, and after that I fell into a deep black hole, and I really felt terrible, and everything I reached before was gone, because that was really too much for me, and but yeah, then two very, very difficult years followed. So I had to process that grief about that person, and I had to learn how to deal with another person, which turned out was a narcissistic person, and that was extremely difficult to deal with this person. And yeah, at that time, I really had to do for these 2 years a lot of inner work. So I had a psychotherapist. Fortunately, it was the classical CBT, and she was a great person, very helpful. She helped me through the darkest times. And at that time, I found out, for example, that not that virus was the reason why I became so ill, but it was my whole life story. It was because I had a life full of chronic stress, because I had experienced several traumas, for example, several shock traumas, like a life-threatening accident with a horse, and then a big emotional trauma over a very long period of time, and that was due to narcissism, and also adverse childhood experiences. So that's when I say there was a lot bound in the system. This was all this old stuff. And then there came this virus, and then my body said, no, 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 I'm done. It's anti-crashed. And so I found out these things, and then I really had to work through my past and to process all these old traumatic and stressful things. So that was one of the most helpful things. And I did cognitive techniques for that. One thing was very helpful, that was expressive writing, because I also had to learn that I had suppressed certain emotions my whole life, and that was mainly anger and grief. And I know you hear the name John Sarno quite often on your channel. And so I also found his book. And then I found Nicole Sachs. I don't know if you know her name. She's a psychologist or psychotherapist in the US. And she has brought up this method, journal speak. And this is a form of expressive writing where you can deal with these suppressed emotions. And because for me, I had suppressed all these emotions. And then after that traumatic event and dealing with that narcissist, everything came to the surface at once, and I was flooded by these emotions, and it was horrible, and I didn't know what to do with it. So I had the psychotherapist, and then that expressive writing, and then I found Howard Schubiner. Howard Schubiner knew Dr. John Sarno. Howard Schubiner is a mind-body physician. I think you have heard of him too. And he and some other physicians brought up a method called EAET. That's emotional awareness and expression therapy. That's also, this is expressive writing and really going into the anger. And in my case, it was not only anger, but it was really rage and sometimes hatred I had to process. And I had to process a lot of grief. And at that time, I became many new symptoms and I felt terrible. I also got the diagnosis complex PTSD. So now I had enough diagnosis to choose and enough symptoms. But I knew that even though it felt terrible, I had to go through this period. I also did a lot of somatic things because these cognitive methods weren't enough. So, for example, I went a year in somatic experiencing, and I also tried many other things. But working through my past was really something very important. Yeah, so another very important thing was to bringing my nervous system into a better balance when I did all this deep inner work. And to be honest, I think I never had a regulated nervous system because since my childhood, my nervous system was dysregulated. So I really had to learn from scratch to build a better nervous system, a more regulated one. Though this was also very, very tough work. And also at that time, I had to change some things in my life. I really had to change. And it was not only lifestyle changes, but it was really, for example, to learn how to set boundaries, because I was never allowed to set a boundary, or I didn't know how to say no. I always was the good girl and saying yes, so pleasing everyone, that everyone is happy and caring for everyone. And so I had to learn that there is another side too, that I have to care for myself as well and look after myself too, and that I can say no. And there I want to mention that your friend Liz, she has a great website, and she has it was a blog post and I think a PDF permission slip or something it is called. And there she wrote down where you are allowed to set the boundary and that you simply have to say no without any excuse. And I put it onto the wall at that time and found it really, really helpful. So though I was not the only one who was dealing with boundary issues. Yeah, and I also had to learn how to set boundaries with that narcissistic person, of course, and it was extremely difficult because I was like a codependent. That's this unhelpful, unhealthy relationship between these two personalities. And I also quit my job and made myself self-employed, which was very challenging. It is still challenging, but it's also great. And that was really like some people tell you in interviews, it was a transformational process as well, like post-traumatic growth. So it was not only really working through that old stuff and dealing with the difficult things, but asking myself, who am I? Who am I really? And what kind of life do I have? And who do I want to be? And what kind of life do I want to have? I had to ask questions like that to myself. And that was these 2 years. And after that, I was really I said, okay, I worked through the main issues of my past, that I changed many things, and I was improving after that, but not really physically. So I improved a lot on a cognitive level and on emotional level, but not really physically. So there was something missing.
I'm on the edge of my seat. I'm so curious. This is such a journey of finding puzzle pieces. It's very impressive. So what did you do from there?
Yeah, so that's really a nice story, because I worked with a breast coach a while. It was last year. And we talked about that big scar on my belly I had from that old accident. And I asked her if this would affect my diaphragm or diaphragmatic breathing. And then she said, yes, of course, this is possible. So she told me that there is a special treatment for old scars. And I found someone close to where I live who offers this treatment. And when I drove to that person, my nervous system was already through the roof. It was totally crazy. So there was already something very important going on. Then I saw that person and he did that scar treatment, and on the way back, my nervous was even more through the roof. So I felt horrible. I also was in a massive flashback. So when I came back home, I tried every technique I learned so far to calm down my nervous system, but nothing helped. Nothing helped. I was really devastated. And then I thought, okay, I will just sit down on the couch and do nothing, because nothing helps. And immediately after that, my body began to tremor and to shake like crazy, and my whole body was tremoring and shaking like crazy, from head to toe. And then I remember I did these exercises a year before, but I had forgotten about them because I did 10 other things. And this method is called TRE, Tension and Trauma Release Exercises. And it is a method developed by Dr. David Berselli. And yeah, from there, my whole TRE journey started, and it changed everything.
This is the first time I'm learning about TRE. So can you explain a bit what it is and how it works?
I try to. So it's 7 different exercises. It's special exercises that activate certain muscle groups and fascia lines in the body, and they are there to activate this tremoring process. But that tremoring process, that shaking, is something you have naturally inside. It is encoded in your genes, and actually every one of us can do it, but we have unlearned it, because if someone is shaking somewhere, you think, he's a bit crazy maybe. So we stopped that. But and when you activate this tremoring process, many different things happen in the body. For example, it helps with chronic tension. That's the term tension release. So through this shaking and tremoring or movements, whatever, you release the tension from the muscles, and it's really a relief. Feels much better after that. It also helps to regulate the nervous system, because, for example, it lowers cortisol and adrenaline. So it's a self-regulation method for your nervous system too. And it's also called trauma and tension release exercises, because through this process you can get access to traumatic memories, but not that you relive it. It's what is kept in the body, in your muscles and everywhere. And so it's possible that you do suppressed, that you that you complete old unfulfilled fight and flight reactions.
It sounds like through this whole, at least the later part of your recovery journey, there was a lot of having to get worse before things got better. You really had to do a lot of work and make your life temporarily even more unpleasant. But you knew that it was taking you the right path.
Yeah, that's right.
It's a
Yeah.
tough thing. It's a challenging thing. I remember on my journey as well, accepting, and I even put
Mhm.
out one of those really early cringeworthy videos that I think was titled something like the premise was I had to get worse before I could get better, and just
Mhm.
having to accept that as I worked through recovery, things were going to bring up little symptom flares. And even before people were talking about this, I somehow just got to a place of realizing I just wasn't going to react to them. I wasn't going to panic. I just knew they were coming. Oh, yeah, I knew this was going to happen. It's fine.
Mhm.
Keep going. And trusting that in the long run, it was all going to be worth it. But it's a tough thing, really, really tough thing to go through.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. But for me, I came to a point where I knew there's no way back. I have to go through this now,
Yeah.
now or never, because I felt that I really had to process this old stuff. And I mean, what's the alternative to stay with these conditions and these symptoms and this unfulfilling life forever? No, that was an alternative for me. So I
Yeah.
knew, okay, whatever will come, I will go through this. Yeah.
I get a lot of people are reaching out from various places in Germany asking for information, if I know of any resources in German. And incidentally, for people listening or watching, Martina has resources in German, including her own YouTube channel. So I'll make sure all of that's linked in the description so you can access that. But Martina, just generally speaking, what is the attitude or approach to ME CFS right now in Germany?
Mm.
Changed since you first started facing this and were told only
Mhm.
people with cancer could get it, or is it still kind of the same?
That's a very good question. I think there are now two worlds.
Mhm.
So there's this standard conventional medical approach still with it's not curable. You can't do anything about it except of pacing. And also we have an expert at the Charité Berlin. She is really a great researcher for an ECFS, but she usually says it's an autoimmune disease because she's one of the researchers who found these autoantibodies. And yeah, it's true that some people with ME, CFS, or POTS or fibromyalgia have autoantibodies, but when you look into the studies, there's no tissue damage or organ damage, and this would be typical for classical autoimmune disease. So it's something maybe autoimmune-like in some people, but it's still that there's no damage. So there's this one approach, but there is this second world now, and I think that was that every German who speaks a little bit English found your channel. So many people have done these English recovery programs. And it's now that I'm not the only person who offers a bit content in German. It's a few other people too. And yeah, we are really trying to spreading hope. And I think through the pandemic, there's a lot more information. And it's also that physicians themselves are suffering from long COVID or ME/CFS, and they find out that they have the same problems as we as patients, and they are also searching for how to get better. So there's more knowledge and more new knowledge in the medical community too. But it's still two worlds.
Yeah.
The recovery world and the standard world, maybe.
Yeah, I think that's actually the best case scenario that I've come across in various countries all over the world, because some countries have zero recognition of it. Some parts of the world, they say doctors haven't even heard of it. No one's talking about it, and then there's another chunk, like Canada, Germany, US, Australia, many other countries where it's a bit of a spectrum of maybe getting a tiny little bit from conventional medicine, but for the most part, still no. But that alternative space or that self-help space is growing, and there's a lot
Yeah.
more information available. It's interesting, yeah, to see the change.
Yeah, fortunately.
Yeah, and I do have doctors reaching out. It is a silver lining when you don't want anyone to get these conditions, but if people have to get them, when physicians do get it, it does open some eyes in the conventional medical system, and it does help us move things along. And there are doctors who've never had it who are still very open-minded, and they tell me that they recommend my channel to their patients. So it's really amazing to see that humility and that willingness to look outside of the medical system.
Wow, that sounds great. Fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, as your friend Liz said to sometime, the tide is turning. I
Yes.
really like this metaphor.
And Liz is amazing. I'll link her channel here as well for
Yeah,
people
please.
listening, watching. She does recovery interviews, and she's got a lot of great resources, and it's just overall a beautiful person. If you can have more Liz in your life, find a way to do it. Well, this has been amazing. I'm just thinking, I haven't done a ton of interviews with people in Germany, but one stands out with an amazing woman named Claudia. So if you happen to be looking for more information, resources, or information coming from Germany, I'll link that up here and really encourage you to check it out. Even if you're not from Germany, she's a spectacular woman with a lot of great insights. Thank you so much, Martina. I really appreciate this. This has been massively insightful. Thank you for your time today.
Oh, I hope so. Thank you very much, Raelan. It was an honor to be on your channel, I want to say, and I really want to say thank you to you and to your work, because really, I think you change lives and maybe you even save lives. So, yeah, great job, Raelan.
Oh, that's kind of you to say, Martina, and it's absolutely my honor and pleasure to do it. And thank you to all of you watching. I hope you got a ton out of this, and I hope to see you in this next video with Claudia.